Unveiling the Ghost Grid. Look at any sports field. A football gridiron, a soccer pitch, a baseball diamond, a tennis court. What do they all have in common? Grass, dirt, maybe some turf. But there's something else. Something so common, so ubiquitous, we've been trained to ignore its true significance. The lines. The crisp, white, perfectly measured lines that define the space of play. We're told they're just boundaries, just markers, just paint. But a growing number of researchers, whistleblowers, and online investigators are asking a terrifying question. What if they're wrong? What if the paint isn't just paint? This is the entry point into a theory so strange, so profound, it could change how you see sports and the world forever. It's called the ghost grid. The theory didn't emerge from a single source, but coalesced in the dark corners of the internet, on forums dedicated to high strangeness and geopolitical conspiracies. It began with a simple observation from an anonymous user claiming to be a former groundskeeper for a major professional sports league. He noted the almost fanatical level of precision and the secretive nature of the paint contracts. The paint, he claimed, wasn't sourced from your local hardware store. It came from a single, obscure chemical corporation, a subsidiary of a massive, unnamed global conglomerate. The formula was a closely guarded secret, and the application process was less like maintenance and more like a technological installation. The lines had to be a specific width, down to the millimeter. The chemical composition had to be reapplied on a strict schedule, not just when it faded, but to re-energize the matrix, as his training manual allegedly stated. This initial post was dismissed as fiction, but it planted a seed. Others started bigging. Independent analysts got their hands on samples of field paint scraped from dozens of stadiums worldwide. The results were baffling. While the base components were standard, titanium dioxide for whiteness, calcium carbonate as a filler, every single sample also contained a trace amount of a complex, unidentifiable crystalline polymer. A polymer that, under laboratory conditions, exhibited strange piezoelectric properties. When subjected to pressure, like the footfall of a 250-pound linebacker, it emitted a tiny but measurable electromagnetic pulse. A single pulse is meaningless, but imagine thousands of footsteps, the impact of a ball, the synchronized movements of 22 players over the course of a game. It's not just a pulse, it's a symphony of signals. It's data. The ghost grid theory posits that these lines are not isolated. They are nodes. Each field, from the high school football stadium in rural Texas to the legendary grounds of Wembley in London, is a component in a silent, global network. This network, powered by the kinetic energy of the games themselves, creates an invisible, interlocking grid of influence across the planet. Proponents argue that the geometric patterns are not arbitrary. They are carefully designed sigils, patterns that resonate with specific frequencies. The 91.4-meter length of a soccer pitch, the 53.3-yard width of a football field, the 90-foot distance between bases in baseball, these aren't just for sport. They are tuners. They are antennas designed to harness and direct energy. The energy of the players, the crowd, and perhaps something more. Think about the ritual, the meticulous, almost sacred process of chalking the lines before a game. The groundskeepers move with a focused intensity, ensuring every boundary is perfect, every marking pristine. Is this just for aesthetic appeal for the television cameras? Or is it a critical calibration? The theory suggests that an imperfect line, a break in the grid, could disrupt the signal, causing unpredictable feedback. This is why, they claim, the maintenance is so rigorous, so unforgiving. They aren't just maintaining a field, they are maintaining a machine whose purpose is hidden in plain sight. The suspicion deepens when you look at the history. The formal codification of field dimensions for sports like soccer and football occurred in the late 19th and early 20th century, a period of immense industrial and esoteric innovation. Was it a coincidence that as global communication networks like the telegraph were physically connecting the world, this other, more subtle network was being laid down under the guise of recreation? Some theorists point to obscure fraternal organizations and early industrial magnates who funded the creation of the first modern sports leagues. These figures, they argue, understood concepts of sacred geometry and earth energies, and saw organized sports as the perfect vehicle to build their grid on a global scale. A stadium isn't just a venue, it's a power plant, and the game is the process that generates the fuel. Every cheer, every gasp, every ounce of physical exertion from the athletes contributes to the network's power. We, the spectators, are not just watching. We are participating in a ritual whose true purpose has been deliberately concealed from us. The white lines are the conductors, and we are the battery.
Block 2. Reality manipulation and evidence. So, if this ghost grid is real, this planet-spanning network hidden beneath our feet at every sporting event, what does it actually do? This is where the theory moves from the unsettling to the truly terrifying. The grid isn't a passive system. It is an active instrument of influence designed for subtle and sometimes not so subtle reality manipulation. Its alleged effects are threefold: control over athletic performance, manipulation of mass emotion, and a localized distortion of perception. It's a system designed not just to define the game, but to dictate its outcome and our experience of it. Let's start with the players. We've all seen it. The unbelievable play. The quarterback who threads a needle through an impossible defensive line. The striker who curves a ball in a way that seems to defy physics. The outfielder who makes a diving catch at the absolute last millimeter of the warning track. We call it skill, talent, luck. But ghost grid proponents call it grid-assisted performance. They point to countless examples of inexplicable surges of athletic prowess occurring at key moments, almost always in direct interaction with one of the lines. A running back suddenly finds a burst of speed as he hits the 20-yard line. A basketball player sinks an impossible three-pointer with his toes just brushing the arc. The theory suggests the grid can create microdomains of altered physics, subtly increasing or decreasing friction, momentarily sharpening a player's reflexes, or even providing a literal, imperceptible push or pull. Conversely, it can also inhibit the unforced error, the dropped pass in the end zone, the wide-open shot that inexplicably goes wide. Are these just mistakes, or is it the grid actively intervening to ensure a desired result? Then there's the crowd. A stadium holds tens of thousands of people, a massive concentration of human emotion. The ghost grid, theorists claim, is designed to harness and even steer this emotional energy. Think of the waves spontaneously erupting and circling a stadium. Is it just fun, or is it a synchronized energy transfer? Consider the sudden, palpable shifts in a crowd's mood. One moment they are a roaring, chaotic mass. The next, a stunned, collective silence falls after a pivotal play. Proponents believe the grid can broadcast low-frequency emotional pulses, too subtle for the conscious mind to notice, but powerful enough to sway the collective subconscious. It can amplify excitement to a fever pitch during a comeback or blanket the stadium in a sense of apathy to quell a potential riot. The game's outcome is used to harvest our emotional response, turning what we think is entertainment into a large-scale psychological operation. Perhaps the most disturbing claim is the distortion of perception. This effect is allegedly most potent for those on the field, the players, and crucially, the referees. The grid could subtly warp the perception of time, making a second feel like an instant or an instant feel like an eternity. This could explain controversial calls where a referee's decision seems to defy what millions see on instant replay. He wasn't biased, his perception of the event was actively manipulated. It could alter spatial awareness, making a receiver seem out of bounds when he was in, or a ball seem fouled when it was fair. This is the ultimate tool for control. By manipulating the perception of the arbiters of the game, the grid's operators can ensure any outcome they desire, all while maintaining plausible deniability. Of course, the mainstream explanation is far more mundane. The paint is just paint, formulated for durability and visibility. Player performance is a complex mix of skill, psychology, and chance. Crowd behavior is a well-studied phenomenon of social psychology. And referee errors are just human errors. Skeptics rightly point out that there is no peer-reviewed evidence, no concrete proof, only circumstantial observations and wild speculation. They say it's a classic case of confirmation bias, seeing a pattern where none exists. But is it? Is it a coincidence that the same proprietary paint formula appears on every continent? Is it a coincidence that legendary miracle plays so often happen right on the boundary lines? The theory's followers believe that the lack of hard evidence is the most compelling evidence of all. A conspiracy of this magnitude would be masterful at covering its tracks, dismissing any inquiry as nonsense. The perfect place to hide something is where everyone is looking, but no one is seeing. The next time you watch a game, look past the players. Look at the pristine white lines that cage them. Ask yourself, are you watching a sport or are you watching a carefully controlled experiment? The ghost grid might be a wild fantasy, or it might be the most successful conspiracy in human history. The lines have been drawn. It's up to you to see what lies between them.